I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. Before we jump into this week's Who the Folk podcast, I wanted to read the statement our organization made last week on social media in light of the killing of George Floyd. TC Jewfolk has been a platform and place for all the Jewish community, but we haven't always done what is required to elevate the voices of Black Jews and all Jews of color who are part of our community. While we never set out to exclude, we have also not striven to include. The senseless, tragic killing of George Floyd and its aftermath have made it painfully clear we aren't placing enough value on diverse voices to seek them out. We aren't actively opening our channel to hear and to listen, and then many of our Jewish institutions wonder why Jews of color don't affiliate and aren't engaged. It's easy to reach out to the names, faces, and voices that we find familiar. Jewfolk staff and the majority of our board benefit from whiteness, or white passing privilege, and systemic white supremacy. Yes, this is complicated, but it's practically irrelevant in this week's America, where we all bear some responsibility for reaching this point. As a reporting platform and self-styled community incubator, Jewfolk has set a much higher standard to achieve its mission. Here's how we are changing course, as a start, in order to become better partners, allies, and stewards to the community. We're placing an immediate call for submissions of any medium, thought pieces, poetry, art, what have you, from Jews of color, especially Black Jews. If you have anything to say or contribute, we want to use our platform to amplify it. Myself and our entire staff are available to advise whether you consider yourself a writer or not, and can provide technical and digital assistance. If hardware is a barrier for you to create content, get in touch and we'll help with that too. In addition, we compensate our contributors for their content. We are identifying areas of critical community conversations that can be hosted on our platforms, and have them as soon as we can on an ongoing basis. We'll utilize our existing platforms to bring voices and experience of Jews of color to those in our community who might not encounter such voices in their daily routines. To leverage our existing interest area groups, for example, Minnesota Mamalas and J-Link on Facebook, to provide opportunities for members of those groups to develop deeper relationships with and to learn from one another about issues important to Jews of color, and to continue to listen, learn, and follow our organizational value to keep the effect on people, our audience, and all community members at the center of our decision-making. On this week's Who the Folk podcast, we talked to Dudley Dez-um Kohls, a Black gay Jew who is also a nurse in this time of a global health pandemic. But mostly this week, I listen. I don't try to fix. I don't ask, what can I do? I listen and try to learn from someone who is going through things I cannot begin to understand. This episode is not tokenism. It's an honest attempt to start to do better. I hope you learn as much from this as I did. Dudley Dez-um Kohls, welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, we are in June, and this is Pride Month, except for COVID-19. You are a Black Jew nurse who is gay, and so in the middle of a health pandemic, in the middle of a racial pandemic, how are you holding up right now?
That's a loaded question.
Isn't it though? I'm sorry. I was trying to get you to laugh early. So.
Oh, I know. It's a loaded question, and there's a lot of things going on that are just coming at me. As if COVID wasn't enough. I could recall a time when I was trying to deal with that, even as a nurse, even with the whole stay-at-home orders, my husband being laid off from his job and not really certain about the future with his job. So that's a stress in itself. And then being concerned about my safety, our health, and, if we were to contract the darn thing and what would happen, what the outcome would be. And then at work, just the constant anxiety of what's to come. Because as a nurse, we're always just always on the ready. I'm always anticipating of what's to come next, even if it doesn't arrive. There's just constant being prepared. The surge was like the big thing, and we're just, oh my God, and seeing images from various cities, New York City, Louisiana, all those where they've gotten hit hard. We're like, oh my God, it's going to be yes, it's going to be yes, it's going to be yes. And thankfully, counting my blessings that we haven't come to that point, and being grateful for the exceptional leadership of Governor Waltz and his handling of this, been helpful. It's been saving grace. Some people may not see it that way, but I have, professionally. And then, boom.
Yeah.
George Floyd happened. But even before that, as news starts trickling in, there's the relaxing of the stay-at-home orders, not only locally, statewide, countrywide, everyone having their varying degrees of relaxations of the orders. Then you start hearing, the incident that happened in Brunswick, Georgia.
Yep. Ahmaud Arbery.
Yes, that happened, and the fact that it took, I believe it was two months before the individuals, the white men, were charged. I heard that, I'm like, well, and people wonder why there's a distrust, not for police, but authority or government, for that matter. A system that was supposed to look out for the people and be for the people was actually taken advantage of and used for other purposes that were essentially unethical and wrong. And again, it's 2020 to think that that's happening, and it happened. And then the incident that happened in Central Park, New York, that came up. Someone, I recall conversations with some of my white friends, and the old saying, like, oh, you can't use the race card. Like, even if I say something racial jokingly, like, oh, you can't do that, that's not fair. And behold, what does, I forget her name. Oh God, I don't want to call her Karen.
No. No, but basically Amy Cooper.
Amy Cooper basically used the race card.
Oh yeah.
And then, like, you wonder, again, it basically self-prophesied my internal feelings, and the feelings that I probably share with a lot of people of color, Black folks, in that you never know when it's going to happen. Doesn't matter the amount of education you have, your zip code, the car, how well you speak, your surroundings, that it just takes. I mean, the guy was just birding. It was just birding. I mean, to put it plainly, that's the most whitest thing that you could almost ever do. And he gets called out for it, and someone basically felt threatened because they were called out. Like, how dare you? Like, as if you didn't know your place. You don't call me out. You're supposed to be called out, not me. And so for that, I'm going to call the police and report you and say that there's an African-American man threatening me. Wow. And know in my mind that I've played those ideas in my head many a times, where, I'm very cautious about, I'm just going to be frank here, I'm very cautious about walking behind a white woman at work. Like in the parking garage or anywhere for that matter. Not to say I'm going to do anything, but just what happened with that incident that happened in Central Park could easily have happened to me. I'm very conscientious about how I appear. Like, impressions is everything. Perception is everything. So it's like, am I wearing something that kind of enhance my look as being non-threatening? I wear my scrubs. I make sure my name badge is seen. And not only my name badge is seen, that you see my title, RN, okay, he's a upstanding professional individual. I'm careful about what kind of car I drive. Just whatever, just so that I look comfortable enough to you, so that when I enter your space or whatever, that you don't find me as threatening and whatnot. And it's constant stress. And then George Floyd happens. I think the image, it was so visceral. I mean, 5-7 minutes of just watching that cop with his knee on his neck, and then put the volume on, and you hear him just pleading for his life. Ugh. It was just gut-wrenching. And then at the same time, in the same breath, seeing pictures of him, and I see it. And then it dawned on me, I'm like, oh my God, he just looks like a normal, in air quotes, black guy, well-built, good haircut. He doesn't look, quote unquote, thuggish, and it looks like he looks like me. He looks like me, and I just kept having these vivid images of myself being on that ground. That could have easily been me. And then just was at a loss. I was in total distress, spiritual loss for that matter. Before all that, having questioning my place in the Jewish community, and feeling fully accepted. I converted about 2 years ago, and knowing that's even a question, depending on what's your stance on what it means, how does one define Jewish, someone being Jewish. I'm familiar with, the various movements and how they defined it. I've gone to Israel through HMI, and knowing the political struggle that's occurring there for having a space for non-Orthodox Jews. But then you're supposed to feel accepted and part of the community. But wait, there's one caveat though. How are you Jewish? Oh, your mother, was she conservative or Orthodox? That's another.
Oh yeah, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, no, I think you're right. I think
that's a whole other. But on top of that, me being black is like, so am I accepted? And just questioning. And then just being in Minneapolis, I'm not part of a legacy. There's nothing that connects me culturally speaking. And then when I enter these spaces, again, the same script that I always use, even when I'm at work or wherever I am, when I'm entering white spaces, to make sure I'm being presentable, make sure I don't appear to be non-threatening and whatnot. But then I get in, I do my thing, service starts. Still in the back of my mind, I don't let my guard down. I can't be naive, and just to know that it just takes one person, just one bigoted white person, just to say or do something to just ruin me, and I can't do anything about it.
That's gutting. That I could go to not any space looking however I want, obviously appropriately, but I can always let my guard down. In fact, I don't often have it up. And that is an unbelievable privilege that I have, and it's absolutely insane.
And then it goes a step further in that the fact that you were able to identify that. So again, That's where the when I talk about Jewish identity comes into play, in that I'm sure you have your own internal ways of, like, questioning how Jewish are you and whatnot. But then put a black face on top of that.
Right.
I mean, if people choose to and want to question you, Lonnie, but at the end of the day, you're Jewish, you're done. Yeah, you passed. To what extent? That's another conversation. We'll see what happens,
Right.
But then at the very surface, I walk in, I'm black. Whoa. Okay. For me, I'm thinking, oh, they get it. They've gone through this, the Holocaust, and how it came up, and like the starting of it, the beginning stages of before it just went where it went.
Right.
But just the institutional race discrimination, the subtle injustices, and getting it revved up to what it was. Just little things, not noticing. What's the problem? Like, why are you complaining? Like, no, they don't. It's not about you people. You're making a big fuss, and you're like, something's happening. Something's changing. Like, people are either I lost my job, or I can't move, or I can't try. Like, just those little things. Like, and everyone else was just, you're crazy. You're overreacting. You're being dramatic. We're beyond that. Where this is well, for us now. This is the 21st century. Racism is gone. Like, we're post-racial. Like, God, come on, we had Obama, our first black president.
Right.
And then me as a black person, I'm like, yep, I'm highly aware of all those achievements, all those boxes that have been checked and everything. But at the same time, I still can't move through spaces as freely. I still have to worry. I live in a pretty good neighborhood. There's not many black folks around me. I walk my dog like I am right now. It's broad daylight. Even before the current climate, it's in the back of my mind knowing that, again, it just takes one person just to be suspicious or question. But then I have to step back from it. I'm like, Dudley, you're overreacting. Maybe they're just questioning just to question. But everything has to be done like half-heartedly. It's like I always have to wonder, what is their intent? I can't just be and just go with the flow all the time. It's like, you got to be on guard, because the minute, boom, Central Park could happen.
Right.
Brunswick could happen. What happens to George Floyd could happen. What happened to Fidel Castro can happen. It's just me just going about, and there were people just going about their business. They're here. They're American. They're part of their community. I'm just doing my thing just like anybody else. Red, yellow, green, whatever. And then one idiot, just because of the extra melanin on me, makes me a target.
So you mentioned questioning your place in the Jewish community. Do you think that that's because you're black or because you're a convert? Or is it something external that you have seen or you've heard whispers, or either in synagogue or somewhere else that have made you question that?
In the beginning, I guess it's a little bit of both. It kind of goes hand in hand. I wouldn't necessarily do the convert part, because I know many converts who are white, and it's just seamless.
Sure.
They're in. It's like no effort required, at least that I know of. Of course, I'm not sitting down and asking, but just what I can see and tell, it's easier if you're white and a convert, so to speak. Mm-hmm. Or even, I know people who are not even converts, but they're enveloped into the community. And they like, oh, you're Jewish enough. That works. But for some reason, the external, me being black, makes it a little even more, like, I can get the sense that some people just don't know how to take me. It's like, as if we're not the same, obviously, visually. So it's like, what do I have in common with him? Like, I don't know how to work with this.
Right.
It feels uncomfortable. Like, you can be gay, but if you're white, all right, at least we got that, If you're transgender, but if you're white, okay, I can work with that. On and on and on. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
No, I think it did. And I do think sort of hear the anguish a little bit in the, sort of the, and it's so disheartening to hear you say something like, the idea of not knowing how to work with this, and obviously, like, you and I aren't going to solve 400 years of systemic racism in a half hour conversation.
And mind you, I'm a first generation American. My parents immigrated from Haiti. So you could say my history starts when my parents immigrated here and when I was born. So when it comes to, like, say, black issues or the African American plight and whatnot, I can say I have no connection. It's not what I was raised with. We don't talk about, I have no slavery. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't connect to that. So that's another challenge in itself, to know I'm being lumped in with another community that I'm still trying to find acceptance through at times. But again, that's another story. But my point is that, yes, I'm familiar with, the 400 years of oppression and whatnot among the African American community. But then here I am. I just add another problem. Like, okay, still, how do we work with you? It's just different.
It is, and it's another layer of othering.
Yes.
You're black, but you're not African American. You're Haitian American, and so you don't know. That means you don't know our struggle. Speak again. Let's pretend I'm not a white Jew here. You know what I'm trying to say,
gotcha.
Though, right?
Yeah, I do.
It's the you're gay. You're black. You have all of these. You're the intersection of so many different.
And then I convert to Judaism. What was I thinking? Why? To become I'm already a marginalized person within a marginalized group. Oh, Dudley.
I mean, just it's a whole other level of marginalization. You're like a quadruple minority at this point, right?
Right. And then at the same time, I sincerely, people are sincere. I sense their sincerity and wine to those who put in the effort. Like, they want to get to know me. They want to know who I am. But it's like, for a lot of people, I'm like their first, so to speak. It's like, and I'm aware of that. I'm very sensitive to that. So for me, it's like, okay, here's an opportunity. I can either fuck these people. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. No, we're cool. We'll leave that in.
Fuck these white people. Like, I'm not gonna waste my time with them. I'm gonna just do me. I just know how to be careful. Just stay on my side of the track, do my thing, yada yada yada. Racism is here and it's staying. It's not going anywhere. Whatever. So the day I die. Or try to be a part of the solution and try to find ways not only combat my internal struggles of identity and whatnot, and knowing that someone might look down at me and cause some ill will upon me, or what have you, or those internal anguishes at the same time. But I gotta rise above. I gotta still show up, because I know if I can't get through 10 white folks, if I get to one, it's a start.
Right. So how you have these moments of despair and anguish with all that's been going on in the Twin Cities, again, not just as it relates to George Floyd, but as it relates to you professionally with COVID-19 and your husband being laid off because of COVID-19. How do you rise above? Where do you find the strength from? Because, like I said, I can hear that there is so much going on for you and with you that I'd have to imagine that there are times where you just want to curl up in a dark room and say, the hell with it.
Yeah.
I'll be back in a week.
Yeah. And, even with COVID, oh my God, I don't know how many times I have to hear, racial disparities within those who contracted the virus. And, African Americans are more likely to contract it and die. So you could imagine, here I am, I'm in a room and I'm the only black person. So as statistic puts it, I could just walk out and that's what it would look like. That's how easy it is for me to just be taken by this COVID thing. But at the same time, I still got to show up to work. I still have to provide the care. I'm still following through in what I was commissioned to do as a registered nurse. Still do my part. At the same time, having these things in the back of my mind. And when you ask, like, what gives me strength, I would have to say my husband, very supportive of me, for each other, his family, just being loving and accepting of me. And then, believe it or not, my faith within Judaism. I know that however you want to define Jews or whatever, I know that there's not a lot of at least the circles I'm around talk of like spirituality and whatnot. I believe in a God and I believe in a higher power. I don't know if it has something to do with like Christian roots, but they kind of just overflowed, like kind of transferred over and kind of make things easier for me. But then there were new beliefs and values that I picked up from Judaism that's also helped me and strengthened me. It was through Judaism that I was able to return to my higher power. Whereas before I let that go, I was like nothing. Like I'm agnostic, but I'm not going to follow anything like any structure or anything like that. And then when Judaism came along, it changed that. It returned me back, I guess, to the fold, so to speak. There's a lot of through Judaism, I was allowed the space to question, to doubt, not only the one above, but also those around me, my leadership. To come from a school of thought of like whatever you hear from at the pulpit is word, and that's it.
Yeah.
And if you don't like it, get out. You're excommunicated. You're disfellowshipped. Then I come here. It's like it was like, oh wow, I don't have to agree with the rabbi. I don't have to agree with the authorities of so and so or whatever. It's okay. It's the Jewish thing to do. You don't just blindly take things. But at the end of the day, you're still Jewish.
Right. Right. You don't get penalized for having your own opinions.
No. But then, as long as those are your opinions, like, what's the intent? What is the motive? And at the end of the day, it's to what is it? To kumolam, to repair the world, and that's what I'm doing now. This is what this having this discussion with you is a part of that for me. And then also, every morning this is just me, and as you asked, like I recite the Modani blessing, and then it's just a way to keep me grounded, and to, despite all the strife, despite all the anguish and heartache, I count my blessing. There's still some good. There's still some good. The people, the relationships that I've established, I'm able to work. I'm still able to provide, at the same time still help. So I know that
no, I
answered
think
your question.
it did answer it, and I think it's a beautiful sentiment, and I know it's really. I mean, I think we, I know speaking just for myself, that I know that the last few months of sheltering in place has taken a toll, physically, mentally, emotionally, and I know it has for a lot of people, and for a lot, I also know a lot of people who are like, whatever, it is what it's fine. I'm gonna go out and do whatever I can, and that's fine. But I know also that it's hard, and then George Floyd happens, and I think it's just sort of the one on top of the other, on top of
Yep.
the other. It's sort of the and I don't know if you have a thought.
If you know, Lonnie, if you take that and what you experience and how that may have made you feel, but if that was the rest of your life,
right?
This is just like, this is unfortunately, because we have a short attention span. While I was actually telling someone this at work, a fellow nurse, on my lunch break, and I see the anguish and the internal dialogue that people are having, like, oh my god, and maybe you're right, maybe it's because it was so visceral and it's so close to home. I mean, I'm at I'm not don't know if I'm allowed to say what hospital I'm at, but I'm at Abbott, and I'm not far from where the incident occurred, and I'm right there, just next to Lake Street, seeing all the destruction. And during my lunch break, my co-worker spoke to me and asking me, how are you doing? And I understood, when people ask you that, hey, what's up? How you doing? It's just like, it's just something a polite thing to ask. But I could tell she wanted something more, like really, truly wanted to check in on me.
Yeah.
And I told her, it's funny because, coming to work, and this is my first day back to work after the riots had already occurred. They were giving out, mandatory leave of absence and just minimizing the number of cases so that we don't have too much people coming in and out, for employee safety.
Sure.
And I said, this is my first day back, and I have to tell you, as I was driving in, I'm a little anxious. My anxiety level has heightened to the point it hasn't in a long time. Now, I've always been anxious about my surroundings and make sure I'm being safe and, not become a target or whatever. But now it's even heightened more because you, as a white woman, white person, your anxiety is heightened. And I have to be even extra cautious in what I do and say, to not make myself an easier target, because now it's just a free-for-all for, with the vigilantes that are running around. It's like, oh, great. And then when I told her that, she was like, wow, I just never knew that or even considered that. It's like, yeah. And then, and I said, but you know what? Once we do rebuild, once the media gets bored of talking about it, you feel now your anxiety has been depressed or leveled, and you feel safe and comfortable to be able to roam about as you please and not worry anymore, I will still have my mind's eye will still be there. It'll be lessened, but it will still be here. While you get to be yourself again. Doo-doo-doo. Karen gets to go out shopping again. Sorry.
No, but
you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean the little dig notwithstanding, although funny as it may be.
Yes,
but I do think that's important. I think for people to hear and for people to recognize that the white or white passing among us will their anxiety will go away or get to be redirected to other things.
Yes.
Once this moment is over, but it won't ever for you.
And I'll tell you right now, I mean, this is when now, granted the fact that I am various layers of marginalized group, the benefit of that is I can flow through various spaces, and I get the privilege, I know I have privileges too, that allow me access. And, the Black part of me, I'm hearing Black conversations and what their fears are and what they're thinking. And the sentiment is, well, this is just going to pass and this is going to go back to the status quo after this. And like, dang, what's up with these right fools? They just now realizing the shit was going down.
Right.
That's what we've been telling them all the time. The kneeling, the peaceful protests. We were telling you. You knew it. And we saw the white allies, those who were standing there next to us and whatnot. I know they exist. They're there. And I am very appreciative. And in that sense, I think we come a long way for that. But at the same time, again, the attention will be gone again. And back to square one. It's just going to be the next, God forbid, the next shooting. Or what have you.
And one of the things that I've been trying to grapple with over the course of the last 9 days, as you and I are speaking since George Floyd was killed, was, what is it about this one that has made it turned into a national movement? This stopped being a local story, by last weekend when
right.
people took to the streets nationwide. And I get the sense that it's part of it is because it was filmed.
Yep.
In
the
length of it is such stark detail, the heartbreaking, anguishing, begging for his life.
Yes.
And then the fact that it is the third in a relatively short sequence of events with Breonna Taylor in Louisville and Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia. And, Breonna Taylor's wasn't caught on tape and it wasn't as publicized, but
right.
because it was a police shooting, you have all of these three incidents, all seemingly, wanton acts of violence by, law enforcement, or in Ahmaud Arbery's case, ex-law enforcement.
Right. And
the people finally had enough. And I think I think your point is correct and well taken, that the idea of, we as a Black community tried to tell you that's why we knelt. That's why that was the peaceful protest, and you didn't want to hear that. And I think all of it bubbling up is why now. And it just so happened to be Minneapolis that was the straw that broke the camel's back. But it could have been it could have been Minneapolis, it could have been Kansas City.
Right.
It was going to happen anyway.
Right. And I think for Minneapolis, it's almost a bit of a contradiction in a way. It's almost like a sick joke in a way. It's Minneapolis, Minnesota, blue state, progressive. We're accepting. Oh, really? Boom.
Yeah. And I've had this conversation with friends and relatives out of state who are sort of question how this could happen. I'm like, oh, guys, you haven't been paying attention to Minnesota then.
Right.
We're a blue state. We're seemingly progressive, but, hats off to Governor Walz, who called out the fact that we're a great place if you're white, but the disparities,
Sorry again.
No, not at all. The disparities are atrocious, and you have. I mean, this is not the first incident with the Minneapolis police.
No.
This is far from it, and
Right.
this has been. And you go back 100 years to the redlining and the land covenants to keep Jews and blacks out of certain areas.
Yeah. So, it was funny. So I was telling a friend of mine today, another nurse of mine, and she was like, I was just telling her, I'm getting bombarded of people wanting to ask me, what can they do? What can they do? They don't understand. It's 2020. It's 2020, and this is happening. I was raised to respect people and not to judge them by their look, but their character. What's going on? I don't get it. Obviously, you were never listening then. If it took this point for you to realize it, to truly have you sit down and dig deep and ask those questions. White supremacy, Jim Crow, we didn't make those. We as black people did not create those things. You did. Why? What was the intent? What were you afraid of? Why can I not be accepted? That's you that need to ask that, and you need to do that internal work. What is it? What do they mean by institutionalized racism or discrimination? Those things that you mentioned, the covenants. What was the intent of that? Why? Why even come up with that? Why keep them out? Why not include them? What is it that we're trying to protect? I can't answer that.
I can't either, but I think what at least I'm able to educate a lot of my friends and family who are out of state to the fact that, we are not, just because we're a, quote, blue state, unquote, doesn't mean we're any sort of utopia. We still have the same problems here that people have all over. We're no better. I mean, I know, we like to think we are, but
it's just a different, I tell people, because I originally from Florida, in Miami, Florida, moved a lot across the state. So it's geographically rich. I'm from the South.
Yeah.
And I'll have conversation with some of my friends up here, and they're like, oh, at least you're not in the South, because, oh my God, when I drove through whatever it is in Kentucky or in South Carolina or Mississippi, oh my goodness, the racism is just so blatant. It's in your face. They're just so mean to each other. How did you deal with that? And I say, the difference about racism here versus down there, at least down there, I knew from the get-go, from the first interaction, if that person likes me or not. Even though we're going to keep being civil, either it be at the grocery store, at a diner, still do our little thing, transactional, but we're going to be civil. But I know already if you like me or not. And that's okay. We don't have to be friends or anything. We're just going to keep it civil. You come up here, I have no clue. You have no idea. But then subtle things, you take note. It may take a year, 2 years for you to come to that realization. Oh, they really don't like me. So,
well, I'm not gonna ask you the question of what can I do, because in part because
you're already doing it, Lonnie. You're already doing it.
No, and I appreciate it, but it is,
No, meaning you're already doing what you have. Just the listening.
Thank you. And that's
I'm more than one, and just
absolutely.
It's a start.
No, and I appreciate that, and we personally committed to doing better, and I know TC Folk as an organization is committed to doing better, and to listening, and to not, it's our job to hear the plight of Black Jews and Jews of color, and not ask what we can do and how we can help and not be that person, but to sit and listen and hear not just listen to what you're saying, but really hear what you're saying.
Yes.
And, you know,
and no judgment, no like, well, maybe you thought it this way. No.
No.
Then you're really your savior complex is setting in.
Right. I don't
like you know, and that's the mistake. And I trust me, I've got a lot of people like, no, then you're not listening. You're like, you're still trying to fix. You're still trying to fix because it's not your problem. Like, right. Because you just no way for you to try to empathize with me. So does it make any sense to you?
Right. It's not my job to fix. My job is to fix what I can fix. I can't fix everything else, and I'm not going to try to, and I'm not going to tell. I mean, far be it for me to tell you how your issue should be fixed. That's God. I got my own issues to try and fix.
Right.
I can't try and fix other people's.
Right.
Like, that's just that's not going to work. That's not
right.
And that's not how. And I hope people listening to this recognize that that's not how we build bridges and how we sit in relationship and sit in allyship. That's not gonna do it. No.
And I was telling another friend of mine, I was like, I was in the Jewish, I think it was my rabbi. I was like, you guys the Jewish people do a great job when during a time of mourning, the Shiva, like the community gets together, rallies together to go aid that individual, that family. You're good. You're good at making programs and checking all the boxes. You know, it's like really like when you talk about social like action, you act like you. I mean, it's seen. Like you make it known. But in this regard, it's a little different.
Yeah.
There's nothing tangible. Like it's not just. Oh, let's put him on the board, or let's show that we're inclusive, or we're going to add some titles behind his name, or something. What have you? It's more than that. It's more than that, and I think for me, it's more of the relationship building, and with that, hopefully, that relationship it causes you to learn and see. And at the same time, it's helping me too.
Oh, good. And that's, I think that you make a great point, and I'll leave it at this. It's the idea of you don't want to be added to a board so people, to help an organization look like they're diverse. You want to be added to a board, A, if you want to be. I don't even know if you want to be. But B, because you have a skill set and you have things you can bring. You should you should be added to a board on merit. Just, again, like anybody else. Because you have skills that you bring to the table, and because you have a point of view that you bring to the table, not because you're black or because you're gay, but because you're a person who has a skill set and can do a thing and can do a job.
And it's funny. It is because I'm black. It is because I'm gay, and that the board that or whatever institution, organization, they have a yearning to want to understand that gay person. The gay issue or the black issue. They just don't know how to go about it. So it's not accessible. So I get it. But then at the same time, it falls on, the gay person or me, the black person. Like, do I want to take that on? I know what good would come about it. But then do I want it to, that's exhausting. That's heavy.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. And like I said, some people just, A, just turn around and just F this. B, it's going to be a struggle, but it's worth it. I'm showing up.
Yeah.
Skin in the game.
There you go. Well, Dudley Dez-um Kohls, thank you so much. I appreciate you, and I appreciate this conversation, and I appreciated just listening to you, and I hope everybody listening can, hears this and we can all start to do better in our own way. And we appreciate you being with us to help us kick this off and hopefully get this conversation, continue this conversation and keep the ball rolling in the right direction.
I appreciate doing it and honored. So thank you.
The Who the Folk podcast is part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network, a product of Jew Folk Inc. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you have suggestions for other podcast guests, please email them to me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. For our other shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.